Okay, this talk is on purity, and I thought it was very appropriate because last week's talk was on modesty, and so modesty is one of the means by which purity is attained, so it was neat that Susanna explained what modesty was and had a good talk on that, and then I'll be talking about purity. So here's some definitions of purity. Free from anything harmful, an undivided heart, free from sin or guilt, innocent, chastity, and freedom of elements thought of as corrupting, so in other words, sin. Now if we look at a pure person, like the Blessed Virgin Mary, we see that she fits all of the definitions. She was free from sin and full of God. She had an undivided heart, and that she did not compromise her love of God for anything. She was free from sin, she was chaste, and she was so full of the Holy Spirit that she only became more sanctified. The Catechism notes that the pure of heart are those who have attuned their intellects and will to the demands of God's holiness, charity, chastity, love of truth, and orthodoxy in faith. For this talk, I will mainly be talking about chastity, but it is important to note that charity and love of truth are important as well. But the first area is charity. Since charity encompasses all of the virtues, and because it is a part of purity, purity not only concerns unchaste thoughts, but thoughts of envy, greed, covetousness, pride, and so on. These thoughts compete with our loyalty towards God, and since purity is an undivided heart, we cannot compromise with these vices in our love for God if we also want to be pure. So now that we understand a little of what purity is, how do we obtain it? And once we obtain it, how do we retain it? St. Augustine says, "Of all of the combats in which we are engaged, the most severe are those of chastity. Its battles are of daily occurrence, but victory is rare." So why would this be? And it is because the means by which it is gained are seldom made use of, explains St. Alphonsus. These three means are fasting, the avoidance of dangerous occasions, and prayer. By fasting, continues St. Alphonsus, it is to be understood especially mortification of the eyes and of the appetite. Our Blessed Lady was so full of divine grace that she was so mortified in her eyes that according to St. Epiphanius and St. John Damascene, she always kept them cast down and never fixed them on anyone. St. Dominic Savio also shows us an example of this purity in that he would never stare at girls. He used to control his eyes on his way to his school through the city streets. Sometimes his friends might be lost and gaping at some excited sight, but when they asked Dominic about it, he had not even seen it. One boy angrily questioned him, saying, "What are your eyes for, if you don't use them to see what's going on?" And his simple reply was, "I'll use them to look at the face of our Blessed Mother in heaven when I go to see her." He had to force himself to control his eyes, for he was by nature very quick to observe things. He once told a friend, "When I made up my mind to control my eyes, I found it was not easy. Sometimes it gave me a violent headache." And yet he achieved such complete mastery that those who knew him admitted that he had never seen him glance at anything that might in any way be immodest. The other type of fasting that St. Alphonsus mentions is that of the appetite. St. Bonaventure says that Mary would never have found so much grace had she not been most moderate in her food, for grace and gluttony cannot subsist together. It has also been noted by many spiritual writers that gluttony and sins of the flesh are often related. The second means of purity is to fly the occasions of sin. He that is aware of the snare shall be secure. Hence St. Philip Neri says that in the war of the senses cowards conquer. In other words, those that fly from the dangerous occasions of sin are the ones that conquer. And the third means is prayer. The Blessed Virgin Mary revealed to St. Elizabeth of Hungary that she acquired no virtue without effort and continual prayer. And as I knew, said the wise man, that I could not otherwise be continent except God gave it, I went to the Lord and besought him. A devotion to Mary has always been recommended by the saints to help in overcoming the vice of impurity. St. John of Avila used to say that many have conquered impure temptations by only having devotion to her Immaculate Conception. On the second question, how do we retain purity, it is important to realize that purity never ends, that we must always be striving for it. We are not once pure, always pure. We must have achieved some degree of purity, but once we have achieved some degree of purity, we must always be striving for the next, so that we do not become satisfied with ourselves and therefore negligent. As always, we should ask our Blessed Mother to help us in overcoming and to help us to overcome temptations and to help us achieve the virtue of purity. For we all must obtain it, because we are all already in the battle for which purity is its prize.